1987 සිට නව්‍යකරණයෙන් ශ්‍රී ලාංකේය බැංකු ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ පෙරලියක් සිදු කළ අභිමානවත් 30 වසරක සැමරුම සම්පත් බැංකුව හෙට දින එළිය කරයි.
Good evening, everyone. We want to start off with some breaking news right here. Strike action launched by a petroleum trade union was called off after discussions with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and Minister of Petroleum Resources Development Chandima Virakodi a short while ago. Now, speaking to the media, Minister Chandima Virakodi said that the agreement that they have agreed to provide solutions to the three demands of the petroleum trade unions which they have been asking for. Now, this was agreed in writing just a short while ago. Once again, that breaking news for you. Strike action launched by petroleum trade unions was called off after discussions with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and Minister of Petroleum Resources Development Chandima Virakodi a short while ago. And now, here's your headlines. Tonight on News at 9, end to the chaos. Petroleum Corporation trade unions calls off strike after discussions with Prime Minister and the subject minister.
First at 9, this is Other Derana 24/7.
Refuting allegations, Minister of Public Enterprise Development Kabir Hashim rejects selling of oil tanks to India. Mithuramulla tragedy, Japanese expert team reports back, recommends long and short-term solutions. ICC Champions Trophy, Angelo Matthews is back in the squad and will lead the Sri Lankan team. And in international headlines, France decides Emmanuel Macron, backed by mainstream parties, to shut out right-wing leader Marine Le Pen. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. We begin off with the Mithuramulla update, where much anticipated report containing the recommendations on the Mithuramulla issue compiled by the Japanese expert disaster relief team was handed over to President Maithripala Sirisena today at his official residence.
The report recommends the garbage dump should be stabilized to prevent further collapses for the foreseeable future. Furthermore, it says the shape of the dump should be streamlined and the base should be covered with polythene before the onset of the monsoon. As a secondary measure, the shape of the dump was recommended to be made symmetrical with a broad base to ensure proper distribution of gravity. The group of experts also propose long-term measures to remove the dump by adopting 3R system of reduce, reuse and recycle. Later in the afternoon, the assessment report was handed over to Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Temple Trees. On the occasion, the Premier said 2 locations were earmarked for the new garbage dump in Puttalam. One of the locations, he said, faced issues by the Central Environmental Authority, while the other is Aruwakkaru.
They recommended that we take Aruwakkaru of Puttalam. Aruwakkaru. There were 2 locations. There one location. There was some problem with the location with the Central Environmental Authority. The second location, and the Minister for Megapolis and Western Development visited the site last Saturday. The
PM yesterday took measures to grant full compensation for residences with full property damage. Meanwhile, people who are willing to leave the Mithuramulla high-risk zone will be provided with houses. The affected families would be granted a monthly allowance of 50,000 rupees for a period of 3 months. In addition, the transport allowance as well as compensation for furniture and vehicles will also be paid.
We have reserved Tuesday for people to select alternative options, and we have also allocated Thursday to resolve land issues. It will solve 50% of the problems. Waiting for the entire issue to be solved at once would compound the issue.
In the meantime, the canals in the area which were congested with garbage are being renovated by army personnel. Severe health concerns have also arisen in Dahampura due to water accumulation in some houses. People who are in the vicinity of high-risk zones express their views on relocation.
The district secretariat said the government will pay 50,000 rupees. If we rent a house, however, we still have to pay a deposit which amounts to 6 months' worth of rent. We cannot be here until they finalize the evaluation. It was they who dumped garbage in our area. We need a proper solution. This is not fair.
Well, in the backdrop where garbage issue has become a serious matter with dire consequences, we and other Derana visited the Bandaragama Pradeshya Sabha, which makes the maximum use of its garbage. It sets an example to the rest of the country through effective recycling.
A daily volume of approximately 10 to 12 metric tons of garbage is disposed at the Garbage Recycling Centre at Millania Deldorawatta in Bandaragama. Garbage is segregated as degradable and non-degradable, while compost fertilizer is made with degradable garbage. The spokesman of the Garbage Recycling Centre told Other Derana the non-disposable garbage, segregated as plastic, polythene and iron, is sold. He added that it generates income of around 100,000 rupees per month.
We collected all the garbage disposed in fields and rivers in Bandaragama Pradeshya Sabha. We earned a considerable sum by disposing them at the recycling centre.
An employee of the centre further stated that there is a reasonable demand for the fertilizer made at the centre.
We use around 30% of the garbage disposed daily to manufacture fertilizer. They have a good demand.
With the resplendent garbage collection process of the Bandaragama Pradeshya Sabha, the town is free of odour and unpleasant piles of waste.
In other stories, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe will leave for India tomorrow on an official tour. During the visit, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe will meet his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi for bilateral discussions. He is also scheduled to meet senior ministers of the Indian Parliament and leader of the Congress, Sonia Gandhi. The Prime Minister will also finalise the agenda for the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Sri Lanka in order to inaugurate the UN International Vesak Day celebrations in Colombo on the 12th of May. Well, the breaking story that we've been bringing you in the past few minutes is that the strike action launched by petroleum trade unions was called off after discussions with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and Minister of Petroleum Resources Development Chandima Veerakodi a short while ago. But we want to bring you what happened during the day. Earlier, panic-stricken motorists were scrambling to fill up their tanks as the petroleum trade unions launched strike actions from the early hours of this morning. The trade union action was based on 3 issues, including the decision to enter into a pact with India pertaining to the oil tanks in China Bay oil storage facility in Trincomalee. Long lines of vehicles were witnessed since last night at refuelling stations across the country.
99 oil tanks at the China Bay oil storage facility in Trincomalee were handed over to the Lanka Indian Oil Company on a temporary agreement in 2003 by the then government. Under the agreement, Sri Lanka was obliged to pay $1,000 per oil tank to India each year. The agreement was made with the option to make it permanent within 6 months. None of the governments which came into power, however, took action to convert the agreement to a permanent one. Within this backdrop, the Sri Lankan government used a few of these oil tanks to distribute fuel for northern and eastern provinces in 2005. The operation incurred a cost of $695 million to be paid to the IOC. Petroleum trade unions charge the relevant lease agreement has incurred a huge financial loss to the country, although the oil tanks concerned originally belonged to Sri Lanka. They further allege that the present government is attempting to make the agreement permanent. 6 trade unions attached to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation launched a nationwide strike, highlighting 3 issues. The operations related to the China Bay oil storage facility in Trincomalee, which is under the Lanka IOC, must be handed over to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. The second is activities related to the oil storage facility at the Hambantota port must be operated under the CPC. Finally, they request the Sapagaskanda oil refinery must be modernized and updated with the government's intervention. Trade union members were seen protesting before the CPC premises since the morning.
Fuel will be finished at all the refueling stations within a few hours. We aren't carrying out this strike to inconvenience the public. None of the oil bowsers have been deployed. Many fuel stations are closed at the moment.
Meanwhile, long lines of vehicles formed at refueling stations across the country since last night, following the announcement of the strike by the trade unions. Certain fuel stations were bustling today. Meanwhile, the Jatika Sevaka Sangama branch of Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, which is not participating in the strike, met with the subject minister today.
The minister clearly said that whatever these trade unions are talking about is false. We asked the minister to talk about this beforehand. If he made this statement a day ago, then there won't be a nationwide strike at the moment. But then, if they are carrying out the strike even after the minister's statement, then it is an attempt to overthrow the government.
The trade unions who are carrying out the strike then met with the subject minister. Minister of Petroleum Resources Development and Trade Unions addressed the media after discussions.
We are discussing with all the relevant parties. We will let the media know once we make a decision. We had several discussions with the minister. We will be able to discuss with the president soon. We hope to come to a final decision during that discussion.
Meanwhile, we spoke with the public who waited in long queues at fuel stations throughout the city of Colombo today.
I've been waiting on the line since 2:50. We've been wasting nearly 500 rupees or 800 rupees of petrol just spraying on the queue. Once they go on a strike like this, the whole country would come on to a standstill.
It's been a long wait, more than an hour in the queue to get a little petrol. I don't know whether I'll get some petrol, but I would like to see this problem being sorted out fast. It's really bad because you're inconveniencing the public in a bad way. I mean, the queues are several miles long.
I think I'm staying 2 hours. It's a very bad situation.
It's very frustrating, and I'm very frustrated. I have a lot of work to do. They should sort it out ASAP, right? Because if we go like this, I don't think the economy can come to an entire grind, right? If it goes on for 2-3 days, the whole logistics system can crash, right? So that's a nightmare. That's something any government won't want.
It's absolutely ridiculous that, the public has to be penalized like this, and these things should be sorted out with the responsible authorities. They must never wait till it comes to a situation like this. Everybody is affected, and tomorrow or day after, children are starting school. It's going to be a big hassle.
We do have an update to that story. Strike action launched by petroleum trade unions was called off after discussions with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and Minister of Petroleum Resources Development Chandama Veerakodi a short while ago. Minister Chandama Veerakodi spoke to media following the discussions with the trade unions.
The discussions were successful. The Prime Minister agreed to provide solutions to the issues of the Petroleum Trade Union Collective. In addition, the Prime Minister's secretary also agreed in writing to ensure the agreement between India and Sri Lanka would be an MOU, and the trade unions and all relevant parties will be consulted if the agreement is to be made permanent. On the TAN complex in Hambantota, it was promised to grant a discussion to the trade unions with the subcommittee on the Hambantota port. Meanwhile, I also made a written promise to table the proposed oil refinery to the relevant subcommittee.
Moving on to other local stories now, parliamentarian Uday Gammanpilla charges the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi's visit to Sri Lanka for UN Vesak Day celebration carries a hidden agenda. Speaking to Other Derana, the parliamentarian elaborated on the matter.
Handing over the Trincomalee harbour to India, which is an emerging superpower in the world, is inviting for troubles because Sri Lanka will be a battlefield of the emerging superpowers because of this decision. If we allow India to occupy our most important port, of course, we can't stop Sri Lanka becoming another state of India. We urge the government to place this decision before the people at a referendum. Unless people approve this decision, government has no mandate to go ahead with that.
Meanwhile, in a media briefing today, Minister of Public Enterprise Development Kabir Hashim refuted the allegations and said some had given wrong interpretations on the government's moves.
We are not selling any harbour to any country. That is due to a misunderstanding. A team including Minister Chandima Weerakodi went to India and had several rounds of discussions with the Indian government last week. Accordingly, they have come to an agreement regarding the oil tanks. This is not about the harbour. There is a wrong interpretation suggesting we are planning to hand it over to the IOC. There is no such thing. That program will be conducted by signing a treaty between Sri Lanka and India and dividing the oil tanks between the countries while keeping the sole ownership under the government of Sri Lanka. We will solve this issue through discussions with trade unions. Earlier, I think IOC owned 14 oil tanks and the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation owned none. Now we have discussed to allocate 10 for the CPC. The ministers have discussed to divide the rest of the 74 oil tanks by signing a treaty and building up a joint venture company between the two governments.
More local stories on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone, and on to more local stories now. The Central Working Committee of the United People's Freedom Alliance has decided to invite all representatives elected to Parliament and provincial councils under the UPFA and SLFP ticket to participate at this year's May Day rally. The committee arrived at the decision during a meeting convened last night under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena. The Manusat Derana Little Heart Social Service Project took another step today on behalf of children suffering from heart diseases. Accordingly, the groundbreaking ceremony for a 10-story building to facilitate a cardiology unit and intensive care units at the Lady Ridgeway Children's Hospital in Colombo was conducted.
The Little Hearts Project reaches out to save the lives of children suffering from heart diseases. It aims to construct a 10-story building equipped with a comprehensive children's cardiology unit and intensive care units at the Lady Ridgeway Children's Hospital with the assistance of Sri Lanka Navy. Funds of over 120 million rupees have flowed in so far from people across the country for this project.
On to business news now. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the controversial bond issuance reconvened after a lapse of 2 weeks today. Dev Gunasekara, chairman of First Corp appointed to investigate the bond issue, appeared before the commission. Testifying before the commission, the former parliamentarian said that investigations conducted by the First Parliamentary Committee on Public Enterprises failed to arrive at a conclusion as the Parliament was dissolved on the 26th of June 2015 whilst witnesses were still being summoned.
Responding to questions raised by Additional Solicitor General Dapula de Oliveira, former MP D.E.W. Gunasekara said he made a collective request to the 8th Parliament on the 15th of March to inquire into the bond issuance dated 27th of February 2015. He further noted the subcommittee, which consisted of 13 members, convened on 11 occasions from the 22nd of May 2015. Moreover, the former chairman of COPE added the subcommittee recorded evidence from 42 witnesses, including the former governor of the Central Bank, Arjuna Mahendran, and the former CEO of Perpetual Treasuries, Arjun Aloysius. The former parliamentarian revealed since the Speaker requested an interim report, the committee had compiled it by the 26th of June 2015. However, the Parliament was dissolved the same night. He also highlighted that members of the committee debated on preparing an interim report, as some wanted to compile a complete report. Gunasekara went on to say, although there were more evidence to be recorded by the COPE, the process had to be halted since the Parliament was dissolved.
I came here today to affirm the legality of the evidence recorded by the first COPE. Since the second COPE accepted the evidence, I believe this commission too will accept the evidence.
The US Chamber of Commerce has agreed to expand investor opportunities in Sri Lanka as a result of the financial transparency in the country. Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanika made the revelation today whilst addressing media following his return to the country from the biannual summit of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank in Washington, D.C.
They were very happy about how the country is moving forward with proper financial discipline. They have not only given us the necessary financial aid under relaxed regulations, but are considering an increase in aid. They also inquired about the Mitotamula disaster, and I could happily tell all of you, including the President and the Prime Minister, that they agree to provide us immediate financial aid necessary to overcome the disaster situation. The officials from US Chamber of Commerce had already come to our country, and more are expected. They emphasized that our tender process is quite transparent. I can gladly say that true investors will be coming to Sri Lanka soon.
සැබෑ ආයෝජකයන් මේ රට එනවයි කියන එක මට සතුටින් ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න පුළුවන්.
The Colombo Bourse closed in mixed territory today, resuming trades after 4 days. Market turnover was 530 million rupees. Foreign investors ended net buyers of 123 million rupees worth of shares. Foreign participation was 29% of turnover. We now have RM Sivanandan from the Colombo Stock Exchange with updates from the trading flow.
The benchmark all-share price index lost 29.59 points to close at 6,505.95. While the S&P Sri Lanka 20 index lost 18.19 points to close at 3,717.64. Top 5 gainers of the day were PC Palmer, Browns Capital, Madalsima Plantations, Abans Finance and CW Mackey.
Now here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded across the trading floor today. Sports news is on the other side of this break. Stay with us. On to sports news now. Sri Lanka's chances in the upcoming Champions Trophy was given a boost with a fit again Angelo Matthews named as captain for the tournament scheduled to kick off in June. Sri Lankan cricket today announced the 15-member squad to represent Sri Lanka in the Champions Trophy to be played in England and Wales.
Matthews will lead a team picked from Upul Taranga, Niroshan Dikwalla, Kusal Pereira, Kusal Mendis, Chamara Kapugedara, Asela Gunaratna, Dinesh Chandimal, Lasit Malinga, Suranga Lakmal, Nuwan Pradeep, Nuwan Kulasekara, Tisara Pereira, Lakshan Sandaken and Sikuge Prasanna. Upul Taranga has been named deputy to Matthews. 2 additional players will tour with Dilruwan Pereira and Danushka Gunatilaka taking the relevant places. While 5 other players, Vikum Sanjay, Lahiru Kumara, Sachit Patirana, Milinda Sirivardhana and Akila Dhananjay will be in continuous training in Colombo. Meanwhile, journalists question as to why Dinesh Chandimal was removed from the vice captaincy.
First of all, the player should have a place in the side. So last few months back, Dinesh Chandimal couldn't sustain in the team. He was not getting a place in all 3 forms. We could have easily put Dinesh as the captain of Test team and the T20 if we had a place in the team. Right now, the selectors are of the view, in case Angelo Matthews falls sick or something happens, best man to lead the team is, within the 15, is the vice captain, Upul Taranga. That's the confidence right now we have.
Sri Lanka will be categorized in Group B with India, Pakistan and South Africa.
It is a good opportunity for all of us. I think it's up to us, the players, to prepare to the best of our abilities. The 12-14 days that we are in England before the start of the Champions Trophy is going to be very important. So we will try and use as much as possible. It's another opportunity for us to bring a lot of pride back to Sri Lanka.
Let's move on to international news now. A liberal blogger who wrote satirical critiques of the Maldivian government and the spread of radical Islam was stabbed to death in the Maldivian capital Male yesterday. 29-year-old Yamin Rashid was found in the stairwell of his apartment with multiple stab wounds and died after being taken to hospital. He had repeatedly complained to the police about receiving death threats. However, the police failed to investigate. Rashid is the 3rd media personality to be targeted in the Maldives during the past 5 years. Centralist novice Emmanuel Macron and far-right leader Marine Le Pen have advanced to the second round of the French presidential race after the first round of elections concluded yesterday. Reflecting dwindling support for the establishment, it is the first time in decades that France's mainstream parties have failed to send a candidate into the second round.
Centrist candidate Emmanuel Macron, with his liberal pro-EU stance, won 23.8% of the vote and is predicted to win the second round. Leader of the far-right National Front, Marine Le Pen, came in second with 21.5% of the vote. During her campaign, Le Pen called for a temporary shutdown of all legal immigration, referring to globalization as a threat. Defeated candidates, including initial frontrunner François Fillon, expressed solidarity with Macron, urging supporters to vote for him. Macron's liberalism and Le Pen's ultranationalism will face off on the 7th of May in the second round of the presidential elections.
Also in international news, China has resumed calls for restraint from all sides as a U.S. naval strike force approaches the Korean peninsula. North Korea continued to verbally barrage the approach of the strike force today, calling the deployment an extremely dangerous act by those who plan a nuclear war.
According to Chinese state media, President Xi Jinping urged all sides to avoid actions that would worsen tensions over the Korean peninsula in a telephone call to his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump. The call comes amid joint U.S.-Japan military drills with a U.S. naval strike group, including the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier, headed for Korean waters. The reclusive state yesterday warned that they were ready to sink the aircraft carrier with a single strike.
Weather update is on the other side of this break. Stay with us. On to weather forecast for tomorrow now. Fairly strong winds of up to 50 kilometers per hour can be expected over the northern half of the island. Mainly fair weather will prevail over most parts of the provinces. However, showers or thunder showers may occur at few places of the Sabaragamu province and in the Galle district. A few showers can be expected in the coastal areas extending from Colombo to Mathura via Galle during the morning hours as well. Here's your city-by-city forecast. We want to once again bring that breaking news which we brought to you in the beginning of the bulletin. A strike action launched by petroleum trade unions is called off after Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and Minister of Petroleum Resources Development Chandima Veerakkodi provided written agreements to address their issues a short while ago. Minister Chandima Veerakkodi spoke to the media following the discussions with trade unions and confirmed this to Other Derana. Well, that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7. For the very latest, do visit www.otherderana.lk, or you can log on to, like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at Other Derana. And before we go, we would like to take you to Kandy, and just north of the Kandy Lake is where you find a golden roof temple of the sacred tooth that houses Sri Lanka's most important Buddhist relic, a tooth of Lord Buddha, this temple known as the Dalada Maligawa. Other Derana News at 9 will return tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thank you for joining us and have a good night.
Bringing you the news and information information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.